Welcome to Breathe California TV. My name is Terry Trumbull. I'm a volunteer for Breathe California of the Bay Area. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but Breathe California is the lung protection organization for the state of California. We have 6 chapters throughout the state. So today I'm pleased to be talking with my friend Rob Rennie, who I've worked with for 25 years or so. After a 30-second break, we'll come back and start up with Rob. So see you then.
It's given me a chance to go out and be with people who has the same problem. And it helps you to manage your life better too, because you hear different things from each person, and it's just been really helpful in many ways.
Welcome back. This is Breathe California TV. We're on every Monday night at 7 p.m. for a half hour in San Jose and Campbell for Comcast subscribers. So I hope you tune us in every Monday night. Today, our guest is Rob Rennie, who's a councilman from Los Gatos. Rob and I have worked together for 20 years on a nonprofit that seeks to improve the quality of life of people in Santa Clara County. And then the last 6.5 years, he's been a councilman and mayor in Los Gatos. So welcome.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So I did all that talking. You got any rebuttal?
No, all sounds good.
Okay. So Breathe California, before the epidemic hit, had been helping 100 to 150,000 people in the South Bay each year with lung problems. With the limitations of the epidemic, we're down to 40,000 now. Rob, besides his council works, has sat on a number of regional bodies, the most important of which for your lung health is probably the Santa Clara County, what is it, Clean Energy? Is that the name of it?
We call it the Silicon Valley Clean Energy.
So why should anybody care about Silicon Valley Clean Energy?
Well, it's actually one of my accomplishments that I'm more proud of is helping to found Silicon Valley Clean Energy. It is allowed our residents to get 100% carbon-free energy. We started up, I think it was about 4 years ago, and I was our chairman at the time that we started delivering our carbon-free energy. It's really made a difference in moving the needle in fighting climate change in our county by making sure that the electricity everybody is getting is carbon-free. Of course, there's a couple other providers in the county in Santa Clara, Palo Alto, and San Jose, but Silicon Valley Clean Energy serves all the rest of the county, and we have about 97% of the people in all those other cities and in the county. In addition to providing the clean electricity, we also take whatever kind of profits we can get and we turn them back into programs that help decarbonization further. We give out grants for electric chargers, for example, in multi-unit dwellings, so that people that don't own a home, it makes it easier for them to move to an electric car, for example. We've done other things like champion reach codes in the cities, and what that means is every couple years the cities have to approve new national electric codes, and what we do is we ask the cities to go beyond the new requirements to require all or mostly electric in new buildings, for example, getting rid of the natural gas, which is a big greenhouse gas generator.
So 6 years when I was member of Palo Alto's Utilities Commission, I proposed that and the staff was pretty upset, saying the public wouldn't go for it. Do you have a sense that the public will understand a reduction in natural gas use?
You know, it is difficult. A lot of people, really a large number of people, believe climate change is an issue and they want us to do something. Moving away from some appliances are difficult. The stove is one of those that people really, you know, they're used to their gas stove, but it's more than just a greenhouse gas generator. Your gas stove actually creates a lot of formaldehyde and NOx's and SOs and so forth in your house. So if you're worried about air quality, your stove is actually creating bad air quality in the house, in addition to adding to, you know, our climate problems. You know, a lot of people are skeptical of electrical stoves from past experience, but there's a lot of new induction stoves and even new just non-induction electric stoves that really cook quite well. And we just need to get them a little bit off the must-have gas stoves, and then most of the rest of the gas usage, the electric water heater or the space heating, people don't notice that much if it moves to electric.
So how much, let me phrase this differently, are you actually banning new natural gas connections in residents or businesses?
Yes, so each city is doing, you know, what we did with Silicon Valley Clean Energy Authority is we provided some model ordinances of things to include, and each city has done things a little bit different depending on kind of, I guess, what the citizens or the council, you know, was willing to pallet. In Los Gatos, for example, we have banned all natural gas in new residential buildings. So it has to be all electric in new residential buildings. We haven't done anything on commercial in Los Gatos yet. And actually getting it through in Los Gatos was a little bit of a challenge. Our mayor at that time didn't believe in climate change and refused to even put the discussion on the agenda, and just brought our National Electric Codes update forward. And I convinced our other council members, no, wait a minute, we need to do something more to fight climate change and put something in for REACH codes. So we actually were a little late approving our NEC codes for short, but we got our REACH code in Los Gatos, which I'm proud of.
I guess I should have asked this earlier because it fit in better, but tell us, how is Silicon Valley Clean Energy managed? Does each city have a representative?
Yes, each city that's part of it, including the county, has one representative. So we have a board that is, I believe we're at 13. When we first formed, Milpitas wasn't part of it, and they joined us a little bit later. So yeah, each city has a representative, and usually we vote just one person vote. But we do have a fallback that the vote can be done by load. So we have a couple cities that are much larger load than others, and they would count for more. But our board gets along quite well, and we, you know, come to agreements pretty easily. So we have never had to have any kind of let's do it based on load kind of vote. It's always been one vote for each member city.
So you and I served together on something called LAFCO. What in the world is that, other than the weirdest government acronym ever?
Well, it stands for Land Agency Formation Commission, and it's got a couple important missions. One of which is to make sure that services are delivered efficiently and costly. And to do that, one of its goals is to also curb sprawl. If we start making long gas lines, sewer lines off to some, you know, area annexed way from the city core, it starts costing a lot more. Other goals as part of that also are to protect our open space and preserve ag and farmland, protect our hillsides and so forth. It's really was formed as a result of, in the 50s, there was kind of annexation grab all over the state of California, where cities were just sprawling everywhere, and it was creating a not very pleasant environment, but also a costly one to costly to provide services, I'd say.
So just for me to dive in here, one of the reasons I ask you about this is when I was doing postgraduate work in law school, our planning textbook described San Jose as the worst example of urban sprawl in the country. So I think you and I are fairly proud of our work to save people money. The cost of providing services is incredibly increased when you allow people to build 10, 15 miles away from the rest of the city. But let's switch back to a current issue. What are you in Los Gatos doing about wildfires, which you've got a significant amount of hillsides in your city, if I recall?
That is true, and it goes back to climate change, which is one of our most important things to work on, is preventing climate change from getting worse, but also the effects of climate change. I don't think anybody isn't going to notice that our climate is changing. You look up in the air every summer now, and there's smoke from somewhere. Every year we're getting a new largest fire ever, with the Dixie fires at #2, and only quarter of it contained or something, so it'll soon be the largest. And last year we thought was our worst fire season. This year we're really early in the fire season, and we already have what's going to probably be our largest fire ever on record. One of the things I did as mayor was put a focus on emergency preparedness, and we've done a lot in Los Gatos for all kinds of emergencies. In addition to the fire, we have added more resources and equipment to our CERTs, which are our community emergency response teams, which help out in emergencies, and our ham radio equipment, and we've added more staff attention to these. We've done a lot of awareness and preparedness kinds of education, particularly for seniors and for people in the hillsides. We've started doing emergency evacuation drills out of the hills. We have lots of areas in the hills that there's only one way out. If there's a fire, it's a big deal that they get out. We've spent, between last year and this year, we've allocated $1 million in Los Gatos to trim the brush away from these emergency routes in our hills to make sure people aren't driving through tunnels on the way out. We've done other policy things also in Los Gatos, such as for a long time we've had what we call hazardous weeds. They're really fire danger weed ordinances that people have to clean up. So the weeds are really where a fire can easily get started. But the next level of the fire ladder is brush. So recently we've added hazardous brush ordinance, also saying people must clean up their hazardous brush. Once the fire gets started, brush is what helps get it hot enough so that the trees start to burn. So just addressing the weeds is really just trying to make sure it doesn't start. But if it's started, getting rid of the brush is really important to making it not get hot enough and not spread. We've also put policy requirements around defensible space around places in the hillsides. And these are all things that, I'm a candidate for county supervisor. I would like to do a lot more of at the county level. Clearly, there's a lot of county in the hills around Los Gatos and down our South County Valley and so forth. So there's a lot more defensible space. I think the county can, money can be spent clearing our emergency routes and creating defensible space between the complete wildland and the wildland urban interface, for example. And I'll add to this also, this LAFCO comes in here too. One of the things LAFCO thinks about is fire and fire districts, and how do we not make firefighting more expensive and harder and more loss of structure or life. So LAFCO also looks at annexations into the hillsides from a fire perspective and says, this is a really high fire area. we should really be careful about, letting any kind of annexation of that sort go on. And so that's another important place that LAFCO, as you mentioned, is involved, helping with our fire problems.
Very good. I attended a fire prevention seminar recently, and the fire marshal astounded me by showing us a video of how easy it is for a stack of leaves, dried out leaves, to catch a cinder from elsewhere in a fire and start your house up if it's got up a significant amount of wood in it. So those sound very good. You're quite thoughtful on that. So we'll be back with Rob Rennie in about 30 seconds and talk some more about climate change. See you then.
My name is Renee Montez. I've been using the CPAP machine, I would guess 10 years. I got so accustomed to it, I don't go anywhere without it. I take it with me everywhere. From the moment I put it on, I thought it was the greatest thing because the breathing was a lot easier, and after using it for a couple nights, I felt a lot of energy. Breathe California is fabulous.
Welcome back to Breathe California TV. We're talking with Los Gatos Councilman Rob Rennie, who just outlined the roles in helping us on climate change that the Silicon Valley Clean Energy performs, of which, are you still a director of that representing Los Gatos?
I am. There's actually only 2 of our original founding directors left, as more people have termed out on their councils or left their councils. I'm one of 2 founding board members that are left there.
So I've been pleased to do 3 or 4 shows on Silicon Valley Clean Energy, helped by the fact that I think about half their staff are my former students. But anyhow, climate change is something that we've been talking about since I was a kid. Are you pleased with the directions that our country's going, and if not, more that you'd suggest we do?
Well, at the country level, that's an interesting question. We've been pretty slow to address. It's a big job to really try to slow climate change. Anybody that's really paid attention thinks that we need to have much more drastic kinds of changes. Our country has been pretty slow. California's been a bit of a leader trying to switch from a carbon-free electric grid, for example, starting to talk about changing off of gas. We're not really moving very fast there. At a country level, Biden has started, has a plan that he's talking about trying to get a carbon-free grid. I think it's going to be an even bigger job at the national level. I'm glad we're starting to talk about it. But if you think about it, in order to really get the carbon out, maybe we can switch to electric cars. But think about the built environment. There's so much of the existing built environment already using natural gas. So that's why REACH codes, as we mentioned earlier, I think are so important to get started on anything new. Really needs to be bringing in the electric appliances and getting rid of the gas, because it's, when do existing homes change from their gas appliances? May take 20 years. It depends on how old things are, right? Maybe on the average, it's going to be 10 more years before somebody is going to switch their appliances. So, the built environment, I think, is one of the tougher places to switch over. And of course, getting people off of gas cars onto electric cars, we have to build a national, charging infrastructure that makes it easy to travel. We need cars that can charge faster than the ones that do now, so that, if you're traveling a long way, you stop in for a charge, and in 20 minutes or a half hour, you can get 3/4 of a tank. We need to get to that rate. Teslas are pretty good, but I think that there's even faster charging coming. If you look out at some of those, I think it's Charge America chargers that have 150 kilowatt charging rate. Typically, the charger you have at home charges at about 35 kilowatts. no, is that right? They're actually six amp charge, 6 kilowatt. Is that right? No, I'm confused myself. It's the fast chargers that you can plug into are 35. So at home it's about 6, and these faster one, I think Tesla's charging about 50 kilowatts, and then there's chargers that are coming are even faster. So getting to a faster charge car will allow more people to more easily travel distance using electric cars and get us off gas cars.
So my humble opinion is that virtually every electric car has enough range now to be used regularly for going to your job or other around city functions. But last month I ended up doing 2 trips to go to my sister's house in Salem, Oregon. And I could make it the whole way on my hybrid, but I would have had to stop and sit around waiting, as you already talked about, with the charging rates, once or twice each direction to get there.
Yeah, I've done that trip with my all-electric to San Diego, and I had to charge 2.5 times and play little games that I figured out when the battery's low, it charges faster. So maybe you don't fill it all the way up. Maybe you fill it to 3/4, so you get the maximum rate of charge, and then you drive some more, drive a couple hours, and then have to charge again, kind of thing. So it's my car doesn't charge very quickly, so you've got to. We really need better, faster charging cars for people to conveniently be able to do those kinds of trips. If you don't mind, I did want to mention one other board that I'm on. I'm on the recently this year appointed to the Bay Area Air Quality Management District Board, we sometimes called BACMed. That's also an important Bay Area. It's our 9 county Bay Areas that fight global warming, but it also is keeping our air and air quality, so basically protecting our health in the Bay Area through continually improving ways to clean up our air. Unfortunately, fires are doing a disservice to our air quality these days, but I wanted to point out we just passed a new regulation for the oil refineries to a 0.01 dry grams per cubic centimeter, I guess it is, standard, which is going to cause them expense to meet it, but it will significantly reduce the PM 2.5 particulate pollution, which is the last 10 years we've figured out that that's an exceedingly bad for our health. So it will reduce that Bay Area wide, but it'll significantly reduce it in the local disadvantaged communities around Martinez and Richmond, for example. So I'm proud that we recently passed that ordinance, and the oil company at their cat cracker, they call it, will have to be reducing their particulate emissions.
Well, I was going to congratulate the Air District on that, not knowing you were on their board. I was the chief judge on the hearing board for 10 years in my 15-year term there, and we had a case involving the Chevron refinery in Richmond, and residents with good cause complained. We had no legal basis for disagreeing with the decision that was made by the Air District staff, but they wanted more, and it's hard to blame them. The 6 refineries in the Bay Area are the worst air quality around them that we have in the Bay Area. So congratulations on doing that.
Thank you.
I think the Air District gets most of the credit for it, but 15 years or so, Breathe California worked hard with the cities in Santa Clara County to control wood smoke, which is our principal breathing difficulty, putting out particulates like we see in wildfires during the winter. And Los Gatos adopted our model ordinance to do that. And then subsequently, the district adopted one because our county was the only one that seemed to be serious about it. So I congratulate you there, and don't envy the work you need to do if you could only just get in and put restrictions on wildfires.
Well, the Air District is trying to do things to help, when there's bad smoke, in terms of, getting purifiers and so forth in buildings and places where people can go. Also, we're trying to look at, ways to help prevent future fires. I know we don't have too much time left, so I won't go too much more in detail on it, but it is a new focus of the Air District also. What do we do about the fires? How do we help prevent them? And when they occur, how can we help people get clean air?
Well, the restrictions on the refineries were also part of an effort at environmental justice. We only have about a minute left, but can you do a quick definition, explain what environmental justice is?
Basically, it's poor communities, we often call them communities of concern, end up living next to where all the pollution is. For some reason, we've decided, well, if we're going to pollute, let's do it near poor people, and they're actually, end up with much worse health. And it's, I guess it's a big problem, and they have less financial resources to move away or take care of their health or so forth. So environmental justice really is about how do we clean up those communities? And there's some new laws in AB 617 that says we really need to address those laws. The Air District does.
So we've got about 20 seconds left. Do you want to have a quick summary about all the marvelous things you told us today?
I don't know if I can do that in 20 seconds. I would just say that, climate change and its effects are extremely pressing, and it's one of my focuses of my campaign for county supervisor, and I would hope others would get on board with addressing this as quickly as possible.
Although I think Rob's a marvelous person, I just want to reiterate that Breathe California doesn't take positions on candidates. So anyhow, tune in next week. We're going to have 3 Breathe California staff talk about much of the same things that Rob's been talking, your health and air quality. So thanks again for joining us, Rob.
And thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Goodbye.